Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're jumping into something really special, excerpts from the novel Project Hail Mary.
Oh, it's a fantastic source. Really gets you thinking.
Absolutely.
Right.
And if you know the story, you know it starts, well, dramatically. Waking up, no memory, on this spaceship.
Light years from Earth, yeah. And you don't even know why you're there.
So our mission today isn't just to retell the story. We want to unpack the science, the choices, the sheer, cleverness in this source material.
Right. Looking for those aha moments. Because it takes these huge cosmic ideas, but grounds them in, well, some pretty neat scientific puzzles and engineering problems, too.
Okay, let's dive right in then. Our main character, Ryland Grace.
Yeah.
He wakes up completely lost. Can't see, can't feel much at first.
Just hearing this computer voice asking basic questions, what's 2 + 2, stuff like that.
And he can't even answer. He realizes he doesn't know his own name. But even before the memories start coming back, something feels off, physically.
The gravity, that's the first big clue, isn't it?
Yeah, he feels heavy, much heavier than he should.
And what's fascinating is even with total amnesia, his scientific instincts just kick right in. He doesn't just feel it, he starts testing it.
Right, trying to speak, trying to walk, making notes.
Yeah.
It's all data gathering.
He figures out it's around, 15 meters per second squared compared to Earth's 9.8? That's a big difference.
A huge difference. So his first thought is, maybe it's artificial gravity, like a centrifuge.
A perfectly rational hypothesis, but then he does something really smart to test it.
With basically nothing, right?
Yeah.
Just himself and the ship.
Exactly. He makes a simple pendulum, times the swing upstairs, then downstairs.
Because in a centrifuge, gravity should be weaker near the center.
Right, closer to the axis of rotation. But he finds the swing time is the same, consistent gravity top to bottom.
Which rules out the centrifuge idea.
Totally, and that leads him to the inescapable, kind of terrifying conclusion.
I'm not on Earth. Just like that.
Wow. It's a brilliant piece of deduction using basic physics, even in that state of confusion.
Okay, so that bombshell drops. I'm not on Earth. How does the story then start filling in the blanks? Why is he there? What's the catastrophe?
Well, the memories, they don't just flood back. They come in fragments, often triggered by something he does, like an experiment or a specific thought.
Which feels realistic, actually.
Yeah, it's a neat narrative trick. And a really key memory surfaces him talking to someone, Marissa, about the sun.
The sun doing something impossible.
Exactly, suddenly dimming. The data's coming from this Japanese probe, Amaterasu. It shows the sun is, dying, but way too fast.
And this dimming is linked to something specific. The Petrova line.
That's the term, yes. A specific wavelength of light that stars emit, and our sun is losing energy at that specific wavelength.
Stars aren't supposed to do that. Not quickly, anyway. We're talking geological timescales, usually.
Millions, billions of years, not, Tuesday. So this is the core problem. An instant ice age looming, crop failures, mass starvation.
Basically the apocalypse. Triggered by something scientifically impossible.
It raises this huge question. What on Earth, or off Earth, could make a star change its fundamental output so drastically, so fast?
And that turns out to be, life, but really, really weird life.
Right. As more memories return, we learn about his past life. He wasn't some, top research scientist initially. He was Mr. Grace, a science teacher.
Loved teaching kids, had the mad scientist lab decor.
Yeah, passionate about making science accessible, geology, earthquake waves, speed of light.
And he wrote this paper, kind of controversial, arguing against the whole Goldilocks zone idea.
Yeah.
Like life might not need liquid water.
The Goldilocks zone is for idiots, I think was the charming title. He was happier teaching than doing hardcore research.
But that paper, it gets him noticed by this woman, Stratt.
Ah, Stratt. She's something else. Runs the whole international crisis response effort. Utterly ruthless, totally pragmatic, no time for niceties.
She basically ambushes him, right? Reveals this global catastrophe, grants him top secret clearance on the spot.
Yeah, no time, she says. And she shows him the data. It's not just our sun. Amateur astronomers are seeing it everywhere. Stars are dimming.
And there's a pattern. It's spreading, like an infection, from one star system to the next.
WISE, 08550714, an infected Sol, Sirius infected WISE. It's like cosmic dominoes.
So they realize they're looking for some kind of alien life form.
Exactly, and they actually get a sample. He has to handle it in a full hazmat suit.
And the lab tests are just bizarre. This stuff is active at insane temperatures. Freezing cold, 1,000-degree furnace, doesn't matter.
Stays at a constant 96.415 Celsius. And when it dies, spectrometry shows it's just pure xenon, an inert gas.
Which makes no sense from an Earth biology perspective.
None at all. Then the president announces its name on TV, Astrophage, star eater.
And that connects everything. The astrophage eats light, specifically at that Petrova wavelength. That's why the stars are dimming.
Exactly. And its weird properties, the temperature regulation, the xenon, it points to something utterly alien evolved for conditions we can barely imagine.
Which leads to the mission. The only nearby star that isn't dimming is Tau Ceti, 12 light years away.
So that's the destination. Go to Tau Ceti, figure out why it's immune, and hopefully find a solution.
In the ship, the Hail Mary. It's enormous. And most of it is fuel, labeled Astrophage.
Yeah, 75% of the volume. Because they need incredible speed. Over 11,000 kilometers per second, just to escape the sun's gravity quickly and make the interstellar jump.
This is where it gets really interesting, or maybe terrifying. This isn't just a desperate mission. It's designed as a...
The suicide mission.
Yeah.
One way. The ship isn't meant to come back.
Only those little beetle ships, the probes carrying data, they're the return vehicle for information, not people.
Which is why they plan to put the crew into medically induced comas for the journey, years in a tiny ship. Psychologically impossible otherwise.
But the coma plan itself was incredibly risky. You're totally reliant on automated systems for everything. Feeding tubes, hygiene, monitoring, treating infections.
So much could go wrong. And tragically, for his crewmates, it did.
He wakes up to find he's the only one left, the sole survivor, carrying the weight of the entire human race alone.
Talk about pressure. It really underscores the sheer desperation. Humanity facing extinction, resorting to these extreme, almost unthinkable measures.
Okay, so he survives the journey somehow, arrives in the Tau Ceti system, uses his petrovoscope to check the star.
Confirms it's healthy, no dimming at the Petrova line. Good news, for a start.
But then, his instruments pick up something else. Another object moving, blocking background stars. Blip, he calls it.
Not just debris, it's maneuvering. It's another ship.
An alien ship.
Wow.
The realization must have been staggering.
Absolutely. First contact, but it's not like in the movies. It's practical. Their ship sends out a robotic arm, standard space station stuff, really.
And it delivers a cylinder.
He brings it aboard into his lab, and the first thing he notices, the smell. Awful.
And the cylinder itself, made of xenon, just like dead astrophage.
Huge clue right there. He figures out how to open it, twist right 90 degrees. And inside...
These weird models, also made of xenon. Little spheres and whiskers.
Which he eventually realizes are molecular models, like the chemistry kits he used to use teaching.
So even before they meet face to face, there's this shared language of science starting to emerge.
Exactly. It suggests they're facing the same astrophage problem. He quickly figures out they must be from 40 Eridani, another star system known to be infected. They're here for the same reason he is.
Okay, just pause there. Yeah. Waking up with amnesia, finding out the world is ending, flying across the galaxy alone, and then meeting an alien who's also dealing with star-eating space microbes and communicates with xenon models.
Wow. It's quite the sequence of events.
Yeah.
And it sets the stage for the direct meeting.
With Rocky, who just sort of
Yeah.
appears in the tunnel connecting the ships.
Yeah, Grace had done an EVA, left the airlock open or accessible, and there he is.
What does Rocky look like again? It's hard to picture.
Five-legged, sort of spider-like, but made of metallic rock. Heavy, uses metals. Has mercury for blood, apparently. Completely different biology.
Communication starts basic. Capping. Then sound. Rocky can hear.
Yeah, it makes these musical tones. Roro, that's a big step. They can hear each other.
And the real breakthrough comes with science again.
Those bead models. Grace makes one for oxygen, O2, from his air. Rocky makes one for ammonia, NH3, from his atmosphere.
They identify common elements. That's the key, isn't it? The universal language of chemistry and physics.
Absolutely. And they realize Rocky is incredibly intelligent. A brilliant engineer, picks things up super fast.
They start building a shared vocabulary, learning each other's number systems. Rocky uses base 6, which is interesting, his script, Iridian time.
Yeah, figuring out how long an Iridian second is compared to Earth's, it's much longer.
And they learned about the physical differences, too. Rocky weighs way more, 168 kilos. Humans are, as Rocky puts it, mostly water.
Communication accelerates quickly, helped by the ship's computer for translation once they have enough shared concepts. They build grammar, simple sentences.
It's amazing how fast they bridge that gap. Does it suggest something fundamental about intelligence, maybe?
It certainly raises the question, is there a universal language of science based on math and the physical laws of the cosmos that any sufficiently advanced species would eventually discover?
And And through this communication, they also share their losses.
Yeah, that's a really poignant part. Rocky lost his entire crew, 23 Iridians, to sickness during their journey. Grace lost his 2 crewmates to coma failure.
That shared experience of being the sole survivor, it creates a real bond, doesn't it?
Definitely. That bad moment. Shared grief, shared understanding.
They also learn Rocky's mission had similar problems. Built in a rush, deadline-induced quality issues, as Grace calls it. His ship got damaged, too.
And his plan to collect astrophage samples failed. He tried to fly through a cloud of them, but they were too small or his collector broke. He couldn't get what he needed.
So they're both lone survivors on damaged ships facing the same extinction-level threat, truly in the same aero spaceship.
Which naturally leads them to pool their resources and brainpower. The goal becomes clear. Find something that eats astrophage.
A natural predator. And their best bet seems to be the planet orbiting Tau Ceti, Adrian.
Right. They name it Adrian. It's infected with astrophage, but it also seems to have an atmosphere, maybe its own life. The hypothesis is maybe Adrian is where astrophage came from.
The home world. Which means a predator might exist there, too.
It's a logical leap. Worth investigating anyway.
While they're working on this, they also compare notes on their home planets, Arid and Earth, and why their science developed differently.
This is fascinating. Rocky describes Arid first planet around 40, Eridani A, super close to its star, spins fast, huge iron core.
Giving it a crazy strong magnetic field, right? Like 25 times Earth's. And a super thick atmosphere.
Exactly. And that's the key. Arid's atmosphere and magnetic field block nearly all cosmic radiation. Galactic cosmic rays, solar flares, the nasty stuff.
Stuff that Earth life had to deal with, had to evolve defenses against.
Right. Iridian life never faced that pressure, so they never developed radiation science, didn't need shielding, didn't discover certain particles or effects, because it just wasn't part of their environment.
Wow. So the planet's fundamental physics directly shaped their entire scientific trajectory.
It's a brilliant explanation for why 2 advanced species might have different scientific blind spots, despite understanding the same core physics otherwise. Environmental context is everything.
Okay, back to Adrian. They need to find this potential predator. Where is the astrophage on Adrian?
Using the petrovascope, they find the breeding grounds aren't uniform. They're in blotchy patches, deep in the atmosphere, about 10 kilometers down.
That's deep. Too thick and hot for the Hail Mary or Rocky ship to just dip into.
Yeah, the pressure and temperature would crush them.
Yep.
So how do you get a sample from 10 kilometers down?
This leads to the crazy chain idea.
Grace calls it stupid but potentially genius. Literally build a 10-kilometer-long chain
10 kilometers.
and drag a sample collector through the atmospheric breeding grounds, like cosmic fly fishing.
Okay, let's just picture this. They have to make this chain from what?
From melting down parts of their own ships, mostly aluminum. Rocky makes molds from their beds, apparently.
They have to manufacture 200,000 individual chain links and assemble them by hand or claw.
It takes weeks, constant work. Just imagine the scale of that task out there in deep space.
And then the engineering nightmare of actually using it, dragging a 10-kilometer chain at orbital velocity.
It would just rip apart. They have to slow down, use engines constantly to fight gravity and drag, but the engine exhaust would vaporize the chain.
Yeah.
It's incredibly complex maneuvering.
That is dedication. Building a giant space chain to fish for alien microbes.
True commitment to the mission. But just as they're figuring this out, Rocky drops another bombshell.
About fuel, right?
Yeah. Turns out, Iridian scientists totally overestimated how much astrophage fuel Rocky would need. Massively.
Because astrophage is easy to breed back on Arid.
Apparently, their oceans are hot, full of CO2. Perfect breeding conditions. So Rocky has this huge surplus of fuel.
Which means...
He can give Grace enough fuel for the Hail Mary to actually fly back to Earth.
Whoa! The suicide mission suddenly isn't. Grace has a way home.
A potential way home. It changes everything, or it should have.
But then disaster strikes the Hail Mary. A fuel bay ruptures.
Possibly triggered by a Tamiba outbreak on board. Things go haywire, high G-forces, systems failing. Grace is in serious trouble.
And Rocky.
Rocky performs this incredibly heroic act. Goes into the damaged, dangerous part of Grace's ship, the human survivable but Iridian dangerous part to save him.
He gets badly burned, right?
Yeah.
Smoking carapace, damaged radiators.
Yeah, he risks everything. Grace manages to stabilize the ship, uses the centrifuge screen to control cables, separates the ship halves to contain the environmental breach.
Well, Rocky collapses. He needs gravity to heal properly.
So now Grace has 2 critical missions. save Rocky, his friend, and process the Adrian sample they managed to retrieve during all that chaos.
Talk about multitasking under pressure. He sets up a makeshift lab, replicates the Adrian atmosphere.
Minus 51 Celsius, low pressure CO2 in this special container for the sample. Add some astrophage as bait.
And the container is designed to only open when the external pressure matches the breeding ground altitude. Clever.
And sure enough, inside the sample, microscopic predators eating the astrophage.
He names them Talmiba. They found it. The solution.
Almost. Rocky is recovering thanks to the gravity, but Grace can't get the Talmiba sample out of the sealed container inside the hazardous environment box.
Another problem. How do they solve that one?
Rocky, even while recovering, figures it out. Designs and builds this specialized tool, like a tiny drill, that can operate inside the environmental box to access the sample safely.
It's amazing. They save each other's lives, then they save the mission by combining their different skills. Human science, Iridian engineering.
It really highlights that theme of unlikely alliance, doesn't it? Overcoming differences for a shared goal. It makes you wonder what drives that instinct in intelligent life.
But the Talmiba problems aren't over yet, are they? There's another outbreak.
Yeah, a separate one. They find Talmiba have somehow contaminated the Hail Mary's own systems, specifically the generator that uses astrophage fuel.
So the ship starts failing. Life support, temperature control.
Critical systems going offline. Grace realizes that Talmiba must have a weakness. He figures out they can't survive in high concentrations of nitrogen.
So he decides to flood the ship with nitrogen.
Essentially, yes. Purge the atmosphere slowly. It's risky, but it should suffocate the Talmiba infesting the ship's systems.
Does he check the main fuel tanks?
He does. Manually takes samples from each bay, checks under the microscope. They're all clean, thankfully.
So where did the leak come from?
The likely culprit. Those sealed mini-farms, the breeder tanks, on the Beetle ships, the ones meant to carry samples back to Earth, one must have leaked recently.
Because Talmiba starved quickly without astrophage, so it couldn't have been leaking for long.
Exactly. So they build an alarm system, and Grace does more experiments, confirming the nitrogen vulnerability. Rocky helps again, building better testing gear, a precise gas injector.
They really become a seamless team.
Absolutely. So they've confirmed Talmiba are the predators. They work. The mission now is about breeding them, controlling them, and getting them back to Earth.
Which brings us back to the big dilemma. Rocky has offered Grace the fuel to go home. But who should take the Talmiba?
Grace is the biologist, the expert. He figured them out. But Rocky's ship is damaged, and he only has enough fuel for himself after giving the surplus to Grace.
Rocky just assumes Grace will take the Talmiba and go home, right?
Very much. It seems logical. But Grace, he's torn.
He doesn't want to leave Rocky. They've been through so much. He doesn't want to potentially die alone on the way back either.
And there are these flashbacks to his recruitment. Stratt's harsh assessment, calling him a coward, but also uniquely qualified. The memory suppression drugs.
Right, the French drug that caused his amnesia. Stratt used it during candidate selection to ensure people wouldn't back out, or maybe to ensure he specifically went.
It reveals the extreme, ethically questionable lengths Stratt went to. Utilitarianism to the extreme. The survival of the species justifies manipulating, even forcing individuals.
Which makes Grace's personal bond with Rocky and his sense of responsibility feel even more powerful in contrast.
He feels he's the only one who can really guarantee that Talmiba get used correctly back on Earth, despite everything, despite wanting to stay. The mission comes first.
Rocky points out, Iridians don't live that long anyway, relatively speaking. His journey alone took 46 years of his life.
So they have this moment, a toast. To us! Acknowledging their situation, their friendship, the stakes.
They agree to enjoy the time they have left together, then go save planets.
Preparations begin. Rocky helps Grace modify the Hail Mary, even building a huge new fuel tank for the return trip using metal from his own damaged ship.
They remove Rocky's control monitor from Grace's ship, secure everything, say goodbye at that connecting tunnel. It must have been incredibly difficult.
Understated but powerful.
Yeah.
Years later, where do we find Grace?
Not back on Earth. He's living on Erid, 40 Eridani AB, Rocky's homeworld.
Wow. How does that work?
He lives in a special dome the Iridians built for him. Earth-like atmosphere, temperature. He eats synthetic meat burgers.
But the gravity must be tough.
It is. His bones are degenerating. He's 53 chronologically. But because of time dilation from the journey, 71 Earth years have passed since he was born. He feels older.
But he has Rocky.
Yes, they're friends. Rocky visits often. He learns about Iridian society, their thrumming communication.
And does he find out? Did it work? Did Earth get saved?
He does. Rocky confirms it. Sol, our sun, is stable again. Those Beetle ships, the backup plan with the Tomiba samples, they made it back. Earth is recovering.
Wow. So humanity survived.
Yes. And Grace feels, well, relieved, obviously, joyful, but also sad, separated forever from everyone he knew. But he seems content, happy on Arid, happy with his friendship with Rocky.
Tending his rock garden, as the source says, finding peace light years from home.
It's quite an ending. After everything, amnesia, catastrophe, Astrophage, the mission, first contact, Tomiba, the impossible choice, he saves the world but finds his home somewhere else entirely.
A journey full of incredible discoveries. Star-eating microbes made of xenon, alien biology, different paths of scientific development, the universal language of science, and those tough ethical calls.
Which really makes you think, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
About identity, resilience, what friendship can mean across species. And maybe even what life really required. Does it always need water?
This deep dive really highlights so much, but it leaves us with a final provocative thought for you, the listener, to consider.
In the face of an existential threat, is the most important discovery you can make about the problem itself? Or is it about the unexpected allies, the surprising connections you forge along the way?
Something to ponder. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into Project Hail Mary.